It's almost like I'm watching an old black and white movie with the old style movie music soundtrack. Hi everyone. Welcome back to this special weekend focused on the band Smokie. It's my first time giving attention to this band. Yesterday was Living Next Door to Alice. Today I'm listening to another one called I'll Meet You at Midnight. And to my knowledge, this was not inspired by any other band's song. So I feel pretty confident that if I hear it, it will be clearly the voice of the band, and I'll get to know how much of yesterday's song was the voice of the band and how much of it was an inspiration. So let's listen.
A summer evening on the Champs-Élysées, a secret rendezvous they planned for days. A sea of faces in a crowded cafe, the sound of laughter as the music plays. Jean-Claude was a student at the Université. Louise-Marie was just a world away. He recalled the night they met was warm with laughter. The words were music as she turned away.
It's so interesting. I'm noticing the strings and the style, the flourishes and the intensity and the drama. And I have to say that it reminds me of sort of classical imitations of, shall we say, gypsy music or other folk. Like, okay, let's say Liszt's Hungarian dances. This sort of bum, or this one, which is not a piano piece. Dum da dum bum 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 da 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 dum, and this sort of intensity, and then a flourish, and intensity, and a flourish. It's so funny because this is set in France. Maybe it's supposed to sound exotic. Maybe it's supposed to sound, evoke something about France, but to me it doesn't, because this style is already in my ears as something representing a whole different culture and different stylistic elements. But it's interesting seeing how they've used that.
The night they met was warm with laughter. The words were music as she turned away. I'll meet you at midnight under the moonlight. I'll meet you at midnight, but Jean-Claude Louise-Marie will never be.
Notice how it really turns dark there for a minute.
Each cigarette will light 1,000 faces, shower that past seemed like 1,000 years. Midnight was turning into empty spaces, the sound of laughter disappeared. I'll meet you at midnight under the moonlight. I'll meet you at midnight. Oh, but Jean-Claude Louise-Marie will never be.
But as I start to put my my musical associations to the side, which took me a moment to do, once I started to do that, I started to really be able to enjoy the sort of shifting of mood and the coloration that these musical this musical commentary brings to the piece. And as long as I keep as long as I keep it separate in my mind from the way I associate that style in general, I can feel that it really does sort of paint a picture, set a scene, and add some dramatic effect to it.
Midnight was turning into empty
Tremolo
spaces.
violin.
The sound of laughter disappeared.
Drums.
I'll meet you at midnight.
There's this intensity here. And then it's almost like I'm watching an old black and white movie with the old style movie music soundtrack. It brings that sort of feel to it.
I'll meet you at midnight.
Here.
Under the moonlight. I'll meet you at midnight. Oh, but Jean-Claude Louise Marie will never be.
Suspense. Oh, romantic cello. Soulful cello. Mournful.
A summer morning on the Champs-Élysées. The empty table, street cafes.
Contrasted with the way his voice is singing kind of hurriedly. An empty table in the street cafe. With this sort of mournful cello lament that's also incredibly romantic. Think of Saint-Saëns the Swan or something like that, where da 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 da, and you can feel the morning coming, and then he sings in this voice, the empty table in the street cafe, and just kind of throws it in there because it's not. The night didn't turn out as the way he hoped, and so you kind of toss these things out. It's worthless. It means nothing to me.
The empty table, the street cafe.
In the street cafe. A little bit of hurriedness there.
The sunlight melting through an open doorway.
And
Jean-Claude is left to face another day.
And he's left to face another day.
I'll meet you at midnight. Under the moonlight.
Oh, here's where a chorus comes in.
Midnight.
Almost as if this is
at midnight. Under the moonlight. I'll meet you at midnight. Oh, but Jean-Claude Louise Marie will never be.
the shivering violins. Okay. So, this is interesting. Yesterday, I heard a piece with similar sentiment, actually. A sort of missed opportunity for whatever reason. We'll leave the details out of it. But this seems to be not just a sentiment that they picked up from another band and liked in a particular song, but obviously they're creating works of their own with the same sort of tragic element to it. And his voice doesn't he bring this sadness, this tragedy into it with his voice? There's this sort of crying element that I hear as he sings, and the incredible disappointment, but all of this is set with this kind of upbeat underneath it all rhythm, just to keep it going. But it's so interesting hearing these two back to back, and discovering more of the voice of the band. And now I'm thinking back to yesterday's song as well, and recognizing the voice of the band in that song too. And perhaps the reason Sylvia's mother appealed to them so much was because it fit their band personality. It fit their musical style. And so it seemed perfectly natural to write a piece inspired by Sylvia's mother. Now, this one is their own original composition. As I said, I don't know if it was inspired by anything. It was really interesting for me to make my way through and find my way out of my associations with the violin style, which I associate with a classical way of evoking and invoking traditional folk European dances. So this, I had to work. You saw, partway along, I was singing Hungarian dance, and then I pulled myself away from it, and I was able to enjoy it on its own, for its own merits here, not so connected and linked to other historic associations that I have. And it got to be fun. It got to be really nice. And I feel like it certainly contributed to the interest of this piece. Because if we were to take the strings out of here, it would be okay. Maybe a bit dull. The strings really liven it up and contribute a lot to the telling of the story, I think. And I think that they certainly belong there. And I like what they did with them. It is a story. It's a story of a meetup that didn't happen. And one forlorn, disappointed, tragic-faced fellow in the morning who's just had his heart broken, basically. and so they're tapping into the tragic element of human experience I have to say again, in an incredibly sweet way. It's not a dark song. It's not a song of, really deep, dark emotions. It's just, a sweet telling of actually probably a pretty common experience for a lot of young guys, right? And it's set in a nice way. We get a picture of the setting of the whole process, evening to midnight to morning, and we kind of live the experience along the way with them. Nicely done. So this is my second Smokie song, and I'm intrigued by their storytelling capacity in their music. And I'm sure I'll come back to them in the future and explore more of their work. It's not what I would call really deeply profound music, but I do like the storytelling nature of it. I like the sweetness of it, and I like the way it's sweet without being sappy. Meaning, yeah, even the music, it's simple, but it's not saccharine. It gives us, enough tragedy to balance it out, and I like that. So that has been my weekend, getting to know Smokie, and whatever comes next, we'll find out. I'll see you then.